I don't usually review smartphones on a regular basis, well, at least for now. And if ever I do, I would like to focus more on the things that I'm personally interested in because I want to create content that I would be interested to watch myself. And when it comes to smartphones, aside from the specifications, features, and performance, I usually finalize my decision based on the capability of the camera system because, as they say, the best camera is the one you have with you. So that's what we're going to do today with the vivo Y73. With that being said, let's get into it. Now, even though this is a camera review for the vivo Y73, I still would like to give you a quick unboxing experience and discuss some of its notable specifications and features. The vivo Y73 is an upper entry-level smartphone at only around 15,000 Philippine pesos and is targeted towards casual mobile photographers and social media content creators who like posting stories and shorts across different platforms. So we're definitely testing both stills and videos. Now, upon opening the box, we have another accessory packaging that houses some paperwork and a free jelly case. After that, we have the vivo Y73 smartphone itself, and underneath it, we have the USB Type-C charging cable, an earphone that most smartphones nowadays don't come with one anymore, so this is definitely a plus. We also have the 33 watts power brick and the SIM ejector pin. Now, right off the bat, the vivo Y73 feels quite slim in the hands, making it very comfortable to hold. It has relatively slim bezels all around, an in-display fingerprint reader, a 6.44-inch Full HD AMOLED display, and a 16-megapixel selfie camera right here. On the left side, we just have the dual nano SIM card tray that also has a micro SD card slot. And then on the other side, we have the volume rocker and the power button, which is easily reachable using your thumb. Now at the top side, we have the secondary microphone, and then at the bottom, we have a single downward firing speaker, the USB Type-C port, the primary microphone, and a 3.5mm headphone jack. This is roughly around 7.38mm thin and features an AG glass back, which is relatively fingerprint resistant as well. It still can capture fingerprints, but it's not as visible as, let's say, a smartphone with a glossy glass back. What we have here is the Roman black variant, which to be honest has a sort of blue tint if you look closely. We also have a small Vivo logo right here, and the reason why we're here, the triple camera setup. On paper, it's nothing to write home about, with a 64-megapixel main camera, a 2-megapixel bokeh lens, and a 2-megapixel macro lens, but later we'll see how it actually performs in some real-world scenarios. It has an aperture of 1.79 for the main camera and 2.4 for the bokeh and macro lenses. The rear camera can shoot up to 4K resolution at 30 FPS and up to 60 FPS at 1080p, while the selfie camera can shoot up to 1080p at 30 FPS. Now, before we dig deeper into the camera features and performance, let me just pop the complete specifications of the vivo Y73 so that you can check it out. But essentially, what's important here is that aside from the awesome Full HD AMOLED display, it also has a MediaTek Helio G95 with 8GB of RAM, 128GB of internal storage, and a decent 4000 mAh of battery. The OS is FunTouch OS 11.1 based on Android 11. I'm not going to dive deeper than that as I want to focus more on the camera, so let's get into it. Inside the stock camera application, we have night mode with different styles or filters if you want to prioritize a particular hue that is popular for night mode photography like blue, orange and teal, and neon pink. They just changed the names, but I think those are the inspiration for these filters. And as you can tell with these sample photos, they are very interesting to say the least, and you can play with these colors without having to do any further post-processing at all. Now, here are a couple of sample photos using just the default night mode. In night mode, by the way, you will be asked to keep the camera steady for around 2 seconds to capture a clearer image compared to the standard mode. And as you can see, it is relatively clean, except maybe for the extreme dark spots, but for the most part, it was able to produce a decent image while maintaining a good amount of detail and sharpness. Next, we have portrait with a different set of styles or filters. And then we have beauty that basically allows you to alter the actual features of your face if you're into that, if you really want to look something else. Then you have this at your disposal. As you can see on the sample photos, you won't need Photoshop anymore to make your face more desirable. But honestly, I wouldn't use any of this as I don't think I need it. Not that I'm handsome or anything, but I just accept whatever I have as it is. Now, here are some sample photos using the default portrait mode, and I say the front selfie camera produces a very flattering portrait shot. I felt like I became slimmer and my face is a lot smoother without even toggling any filters that I mentioned earlier. Again, this is just the standard portrait mode. Maybe it's just about the angle and lighting condition, but a good image nonetheless. Granted, it shows noticeable image noise and probably less sharpness, but that is somehow to be expected for a 16 megapixel selfie camera. Next, and this is something I would probably use, is the ability to adjust the aperture settings from a wide 0.95 opening down to f16. This essentially allows you to control the background blur or bokeh, as artificial as it may look, but at least you have the option to adjust and tweak it into something more natural or cater to your preferred look. We also have different filters and portrait light effects under the portrait mode if you're into that. By the way, you can also enable watermarks if you want to show off the model of your phone or if you want to show a custom watermark. We also have the option for 16 megapixel RAW plus JPEG mode here when using the Pro mode feature. Next, we have the standard photo mode with 1x and 2x. This is digital zoom as we don't have any telephoto lens here. You can also adjust the aperture here for the bokeh effect or enable the super macro lens mode. Now, here are some sample photos using the standard photo mode with HDR. Let's start with some indoor sample shots. Right off the shutter, I noticed that the HDR or high dynamic range effect is somehow a hit or miss, as you can tell by its ability to balance out the shadows and highlights on the lamps. And we all know that HDR also doesn't typically show a natural look because again, it is trying to balance both the shadows and highlights in return for a good overall exposed image. So if you're not into that, you can simply turn off that feature. But honestly, using HDR mode is a good option because this allows us to get a pretty good image without having to do any further post-processing, especially when it comes to sharpness and details or perhaps pulling back the shadows and highlights. All we have to do now is basically snap and upload the images to our favorite social media platforms, which can save a lot of time, especially for content creators like myself. Now, you can argue that these photos have noticeable image noise or grain, but honestly, I would rather have this than an overly smooth or denoised image. Now, going outside with better lighting conditions thanks to natural light, the images look cleaner, sharper, and more detailed. The HDR output is still fairly unnatural, but definitely provides that balanced exposure throughout the image, including the supposedly blown highlights of the sky. Now, interestingly enough, the 2x zoom actually produces a very natural image, which to be honest is still pretty decent as you can see on the sample photos. The highlights while being blown look as natural as they can be in person. Now, before we move forward to some sample videos, here are a few sample photos for the super macro lens. I'm actually a macro photographer before I became a YouTuber, so I know a thing or two about macro photography, and being able to get as close as this on a subject with a freaking smartphone without any lens attachment is pretty good. It's not the cleanest or sharpest image ever for a macro shot, but at least it is not super blurred, has a good amount of detail, and is definitely usable compared to other macro lenses that I've seen on other smartphones. Now, here are some sample shots when using the vivo Y73 for videos. Alright, so this is a video test for the camera of the vivo Y73. Currently, I'm using the rear camera setup right here, using the 1x mode, and then switching to 2x so that you can have an idea about the image quality of both zoom and wide. And as you can tell, we have limited lighting conditions here in the studio. So this is the image quality you're getting. And then now I'm going to switch to front-facing camera. Alright, so now we're using the front-facing camera. So I think this is just in 1080p resolution. So moving around the studio so that you can have an idea about the image quality in different lighting conditions and different angles right here. And now we're going to switch to the PIP mode or the picture-in-picture mode. Okay, so this is the PIP or picture-in-picture mode where you can take advantage of both the front-facing and rear-facing cameras so that you can use this for vlogging. So you have your rear-facing camera for demonstrating what's in front of you while still having your face using the front-facing camera for your reactions and what have you. So this is the image quality. I think this is just in 1080p resolution because it's going to follow the resolution of your front-facing camera. Now I'm going to switch to the another mode of the setup, which is the dual view mode, where the aspect ratio is about the same for both the cameras, as you can see here. Now, I'm not sure if where you would use this, and I think the PIP mode or picture-in-picture mode is the most useful between the two for vlogging purposes. But you have this as an option if you're into that. Now, this is a video test for outdoor at 4K resolution using 1x lens. Switching to 2x. There you go. Going back to 1x and moving around without any stabilization. And now with ultra stabilization enabled, as you can see, the footage is more stable right now. There you go. And now we're currently in picture-in-picture mode, using both the selfie and the rear camera so that you can have an idea about the image quality. So the selfie mode is kind of blown out on my background, but that's okay as long as my face is properly exposed. There you go. Now changing to the other mode, which is a dual view. So dual view right now. Again, I'm not sure if we're going to use this, but you have this as an option. There you have it. Then switching back to normal video selfie mode. So normal video mode, selfie mode, then 80p resolution. Again, the highlights are blown out, but my face is properly lit up, as you can see here. Alright, that's about it. As you've seen, when indoors, image noise is quite visible due to the less than ideal lighting condition. But what surprises me the most is the front-facing camera. The image quality and exposure is pretty decent, even if it is only at 1080p resolution. And during outdoor situations with an ample amount of natural light, the video quality gets a substantial improvement, though I would say without enabling the ultra stabilization feature, the footage is quite jerky, especially while walking, which most vloggers do. The ultra stabilization mode works fine to stabilize the footage, but in the expense of image quality and resolution. I think it works like a warp stabilizer, wherein the footage is zoomed in to compensate for the shakiness. On the other hand, the selfie camera looks really good, albeit with overexposed highlights, but at least my face was properly exposed and the footage is fairly stable compared to the rear camera. Overall, if you set your expectations right, the images coming from the smartphone are pretty decent and should pass for most casual social media postings. If you really need to use this for videos, you might want to consider using a tripod or a smartphone gimbal. Ultimately, if you just need an affordable smartphone to be used for Instagram and Facebook stories, then the vivo Y73 is definitely capable of that. And there you have it guys, thank you for watching. Huge thanks to Vivo for sending this in. You can get this using the link below. Let me know in the comments below if you want to see more smartphone camera reviews like this. Again, thank you for watching. Subscribe if you like this, and see you next time. Have a great day guys. You're awesome.